What if the world's most celebrated tank, a symbol of absolute military dominance, could be destroyed? Not by another tank, not by a missile, but by a flying robot that costs less than the price of its engine. This is not science fiction. This is the new reality of war. And it is forcing every nation, every military strategist, and every arms manufacturer to confront an uncomfortable question. What if almost everything we believed about battlefield supremacy is wrong? For more than 3 decades, the American M1 Abrams tank stood as the steel fist of Western military power. Its legend was forged on the sands of the Middle East in the thunderous campaigns of the early 1990s. During Operation Desert Storm, columns of Abrams tanks rolled across Kuwaiti and Iraqi deserts, shrugging off enemy fire. Their thick, multi-layered armor withstood attacks that would have destroyed lesser machines. Their jet engines, more at home in aircraft than ground vehicles, pushed them across the battlefield with a speed and confidence that stunned adversaries and allies alike. The Abrams was not merely a tank. It was a technological marvel. Its armor was a closely guarded secret, rumored to contain exotic elements like depleted uranium and special ceramics. Its fire control system allowed crews to hit moving targets at distances previously considered unreachable. Its main gun, a smoothbore cannon, could punch through the toughest enemy defenses with a single shot. For many, the Abrams became a living legend, a rolling fortress that guaranteed victory wherever it appeared. Hollywood seized on this image. Blockbusters depicted the Abrams as the ultimate war machine. Newsreels showed its silhouette rolling through liberated cities. Children built models and played video games where the Abrams was unstoppable. Defense officials gave interviews praising its invulnerability and reassuring the public that American soldiers would always have the best. But legends are not built on steel alone. They are built on confidence, sometimes overconfidence. And while the Abrams was tested and proven in battle, subtle warning signs were always there, hidden beneath the surface. Military historians have long pointed out that every invincible weapon in history has eventually met its match. The British battleship HMS Dreadnought, once the terror of the seas, was rendered obsolete by submarines and aircraft within 2 decades. The French Maginot Line, a wall of concrete and steel, was bypassed by German tanks in a matter of weeks. The Soviet T-34 tank, once the pride of the Red Army, became a target for new anti-tank weapons within a few years. No weapon, no matter how advanced, stays on top forever. For more than 40 years, the American Abrams main battle tank stood as the gold standard for armored warfare. Born in the crucible of the Cold War, it embodied the doctrine of unstoppable power, thick armor, punishing firepower, and the ability to shatter enemy lines through sheer force. Generals built their strategies around it. Defense budgets allocated billions of dollars to keep fleets of Abrams tanks ready and modern. The tank was not just a machine. It was a statement. Whoever commanded it commanded the future of ground combat. Its technological edge became legend. Composite armor crafted in secret, layers upon layers shielding crews with classified formulas, sometimes even using depleted uranium. Its fire control system, generations ahead of rivals, allowed crews to strike with pinpoint accuracy before adversaries could react. In the 1990s and early 2000s, the Abrams became a pop culture titan, a symbol of Western dominance rolling across deserts and city streets alike. But as decades passed, the legend began to tarnish. When American Abrams tanks arrived in Ukraine, they were not the invincible fortresses once immortalized on the evening news. These export models, like the M1 A1SA, lacked the most advanced armor, no depleted uranium, no state-of-the-art defensive electronics. Stripped of their secret strengths, they faced a new reality. Exposure on a battlefield where every weakness is hunted and exploited relentlessly. This is where the myth begins to unravel. For generations, military leaders believed that heavier, more expensive tanks would always tip the scales. Governments spent fortunes, certain that size and cost equaled security. Yet what if this logic is dangerously outdated? If the foundation cracks, Entire doctrines, budgets, and national strategies collapse with it. The world stands at a crossroads. If faith in the old ways is misplaced, then defense spending, national security, and even a nation's global influence are suddenly at risk. The stakes could not be higher, for generals, for politicians, and for citizens who trust in these machines to keep them safe. Yet even as Western doctrines clung to steel and mass, a new threat was quietly taking shape. Not on the ground, but in the air. It did not come in the form of a bigger tank, but as something smaller, smarter, and far more lethal: the Russian Lancet drone. The arrival of the Lancet marks the beginning of a new era. Its impact on modern warfare would soon make history and force the world to rethink what true battlefield supremacy really means. Forget the classic image of epic tank versus tank duels rumbling across open fields. The gravest threat to modern armor no longer comes from across the horizon, but from the sky above. A silent, persistent predator. In today's conflict zones, tank crews are haunted not by enemy armor, but by a small, patient shadow: the Lancet drone. This loitering munition is cheap, precise, and unnervingly quiet, circling overhead for up to 1 full hour, waiting for the decisive moment to strike. The Lancet is no blunt weapon. Where tanks once relied on sheer mass and thick steel, this drone is a scalpel, seeking out a machine's overlooked weaknesses. Its strikes are not random acts of violence, but deliberate, targeted attacks. Even the vaunted Abrams tank, long considered the gold standard of Western power, has found its weakest points exposed. The roof of its turret and hull, areas never meant to withstand a direct hit, have become bullseyes. But the real game-changer is not just the drone's hardware, but its role as part of a digital hunting pack. The Lancet does not hunt alone. Networked with reconnaissance drones, it is transformed into a see and strike weapon, identifying and attacking targets in near real time. This teamwork means that destruction is no longer a matter of luck, but of ruthless coordination. The result? Not a lone tank lost to chance, but a steady procession of confirmed kills. Multiple Abrams tanks have been destroyed in a pattern that cannot be dismissed as mere bad luck, a conveyor belt of defeat delivered from above. Consider the footage from Berdichi, west of Avdiivka, in late February of 2024. It is a stark illustration of this new reality. A solitary Abrams, valued at well over $10 million, crawls along a dirt road. Overhead, a Russian reconnaissance drone streams live video. The tank's crew, likely feeling secure under their iconic armor, are unaware that they have already been marked for death. The coordinates are relayed. The final act begins. On the battlefield, the Lancet emerges, diving toward the unsuspecting tank. The strike is surgical, directly to the turret's roof, bypassing layers of armor designed for threats from the front or sides. There is an instant, then a tremendous explosion. The tank's ammunition cooks off, the turret is hurled into the air. The legend is reduced to a burning wreck. This scene, replayed across the world's screens, is not a one-off. It is a harbinger. Desperation has set in among crews on the ground. Makeshift solutions have appeared. Grill cages, welded screens, so-called cope cages, bolted onto turrets, all designed in haste to ward off the Lancet's sting. Yet most of these measures offer little real protection. The drone's operators simply adapt, shifting angle, probing for new seams and vulnerabilities. The myth of invulnerability crumbles with every fresh loss. The implications are profound and unsettling. If a small, affordable drone can reliably hunt and destroy tanks that cost millions, then the entire doctrine of heavy armor is upended. Budgets and procurement plans worth billions, the reputations of generals and defense planners, even the very future of armored warfare, all are suddenly at risk. The world's military establishments must now reckon with the reality that their most iconic weapons may be obsolete. For those watching, it is a sobering lesson. Seeing through the illusion of invincibility is now essential. Understanding this shift is not just about tactics, but about the future of war itself, about who will hold power and who will be left behind. So if brute force and thick armor have lost their edge, what comes next? Let us dig deeper into the new tactics and the sweeping consequences now reshaping the battlefield. The old rules of armored warfare are being rewritten before our eyes. To survive, militaries must adapt, not just their machines, but their entire way of thinking. When drones become tank hunters, the very character of battle and the minds of those who wage it are transformed forever. For tank crews, the enemy is no longer a machine gunning from the horizon, but a silent predator circling unseen above. Morale collapses as steel giants turn into desperate prey. No longer leading daring charges, tanks now lurk in forests and ruins, engines off, waiting for the next whisper of death from the sky. This psychological shift is rewriting the rules of ground warfare. The armored spearhead, once unstoppable, now hides and waits. Shock, speed, and presence, everything that once made tanks invincible, are neutralized by the relentless threat overhead. Doctrine changes under pressure. Generals redraw the battlefield. The mighty tank, symbol of power, is reduced to a supporting role, firing from deep cover, never risking exposure. Every movement is measured, every pause a roll of the dice. Meanwhile, the drone arms race accelerates. Russian engineers are upgrading the Lancet with artificial intelligence and autonomous targeting, making it smarter, deadlier, almost impossible to jam or shoot down. With each new iteration, the gap between old defenses and new attacks grows wider. Here is the brutal arithmetic. A single Lancet costs only tens of thousands of dollars, while a single Abrams is worth many millions. For the price of one tank, Russia can field hundreds of drones. Each tank destroyed is not just a tactical loss. It is an economic and reputational blow that ripples through budgets, news cycles, and alliances. This is the West's dilemma. Each tank lost is a fortune evaporated, a legend shattered, and a warning ignored. Refusing to adapt means bleeding wealth, losing the initiative, and sending soldiers into unwinnable fights against invisible foes. The impact reaches far beyond the battlefield. Weapons procurement, military planning, and the very future of the defense industry are at stake. Agility, not armor, will decide who dominates the wars of tomorrow. So what now? The lessons from this battlefield are not just for generals. They are for anyone betting on the shape of the future. To understand how militaries might adapt, let us look to history. When the British Navy's dreadnought battleship became obsolete, naval planners did not simply build bigger ships. They shifted focus to aircraft carriers and submarines. When the Maginot Line crumbled, military thinkers developed mobile combined arms warfare, blitzkrieg. When tanks first appeared in World War I, they were slow and unreliable, but their very existence forced armies to develop new tactics, new weapons, and new doctrines. In each case, those who adapted survived. Those who clung to the past paid a heavy price. Today, the paradigm has shifted again. The tank, once king of the battlefield, is now vulnerable to cheap, networked precision threats. The new law of war is clear. Adaptability, not mass, is the key to survival. Militaries worldwide are now racing to respond. In Israel, the Trophy Active Protection System uses radar and countermeasures to intercept incoming rockets and missiles before they hit. But even these systems struggle with small, low-flying drones. In Germany, defense companies are testing electronic warfare suites designed to jam or hijack enemy drones. The United States is investing billions of dollars in research for laser weapons and microwave systems that can zap drones out of the sky. But these technologies are expensive, slow to deploy, and not foolproof. What about on the battlefield itself? Some Ukrainian and Russian units have started using camouflage nets, decoys, and false heat signatures to fool drone sensors. Others scatter vehicles, hide them in dense forests, or operate only at night. Yet every defensive measure spawns a new offensive tactic. Drone operators now use thermal imaging, artificial intelligence, and swarm tactics to find and strike targets that once would have been safe. The drone arms race is not limited to Russia and Ukraine. In the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, Azerbaijan's use of Turkish Bayraktar drones decimated Armenian armor in 2020. In Yemen, Houthi forces have used Iranian-supplied drones to strike Saudi tanks and vehicles. In Syria, small quadcopters have dropped grenades onto armored vehicles with deadly precision. From Africa to Asia, the story repeats. The tank, once the unchallenged king, is now hunted prey. The implications for defense budgets are staggering. For the cost of a single Abrams, a nation could purchase hundreds or even thousands of loitering drones. In a single afternoon, a handful of operators with tablets and internet links can wipe out armor that took years and billions to build. The return on investment has flipped. Now, it is the attacker who enjoys the economic advantage. Defense industries are feeling the shockwaves. Traditional tank manufacturers are racing to add drone jammers, active protection, and new armor modules to their vehicles. Some are designing entirely new, lighter vehicles, intended to work in close partnership with unmanned systems. In the United States, the Army's optionally manned fighting vehicle program is focused on vehicles that can operate autonomously or by remote control. In China, swarms of cheap attack drones are being tested as a way to overwhelm even the most sophisticated defenses. But the challenge is not just technical, it is cultural. For decades, military careers were built on mastering the tank. Entire schools, traditions, and identities revolve around armored warfare. Changing direction is difficult. There is resistance, skepticism, and even denial. Yet history is merciless. Those who do not adapt are left behind. So what practical steps must militaries and defense planners take today to survive tomorrow's wars? First, they must accept that no single platform, no matter how advanced, can guarantee battlefield dominance. A new focus on networks, sensors, and rapid data sharing is essential. Every tank, vehicle, and gun must be able to see, communicate, and coordinate in real time. Drones and counter-drone systems must be integrated into every unit, not treated as separate tools. Second, militaries must invest in active protection systems, not just for tanks, but for every valuable asset. These systems must be able to detect, track, and destroy incoming drones or munitions in milliseconds. Speed is life, but protection is not enough. Deception and mobility are equally vital. Vehicles must be able to disappear, relocate, and confuse the enemy's sensors. Third, the human element cannot be ignored. Crews must be retrained to operate in a world where threats come from above and from all directions. Training must emphasize rapid movement, camouflage, and the use of decoys. Commanders must learn to think like drone operators, to anticipate attacks, to mask their movements, and to react instantly to new threats. Fourth, militaries must embrace rapid prototyping and mass production. The age of spending decades perfecting a single weapon system is over. The winner will be the side that can field new technologies, test them in combat, and improve them on the fly. This means closer partnerships with tech companies, universities, and startups. It means accepting failure and learning fast. The ability to out-innovate the enemy is now the ultimate weapon. Fifth, defense budgets must be reimagined. Instead of pouring billions into a handful of supertanks, nations must spread investments across a mix of platforms, manned and unmanned, cheap and expensive, offensive and defensive. Flexibility is now more important than raw power. Sixth, alliances must adapt. No nation can fight alone in the age of the drone swarm. Sharing intelligence, pooling research, and conducting joint exercises are more vital than ever. The future battlefield is too complex for any one country to master alone. Seventh, there must be a cultural shift, an acceptance that humility, not hubris, is the key to survival. The legends of the past can inspire, but they cannot protect against the innovations of the present. Every general, every planner, every engineer must be willing to question assumptions, challenge traditions, and act before it is too late. For civilians, these changes may seem distant, but they have real consequences. National security budgets will be rewritten, technology jobs will shift, and the balance of global power may tilt toward those who command the swarm and the network. Learning these lessons is not just academic. It means the difference between leading the next era or repeating yesterday's mistakes on a grander scale. Already, the debates rage in parliaments and congresses. Should we buy more tanks or invest in drone technology? Should we upgrade existing vehicles or start from scratch? Should we build bigger or build smarter? The answers will shape not just battles, but the fate of nations. The new reality is here. The rules of war have changed, and there is no going back. But the transformation is not just about machines, it's about mindsets. The greatest threat now is failing to adapt before the next breakthrough arrives. In the time it takes to watch this video, new technologies are being tested, new doctrines written, and new legends are being forged. The only constant is change. When legends fall, what fills the void they leave behind? For nearly half a century, the Abrams was more than a machine. It stood as the towering emblem of American military might, a juggernaut rolling across history, unbowed and unquestioned. Its silhouette haunted enemy dreams, its victories paraded on screens and boulevards alike. But on the sodden plains of Eastern Europe, the myth shattered. The Russian Lancet loitering munition, a device small enough to slip through a window, cheap enough to be counted by the dozen, and precise enough to choose its moment, did not challenge the Abrams in a duel. It sidestepped armor, bypassed tradition, and exploited the blind spots left by pride and habit. Steel proved brittle when the battlefield itself had changed. This was not a single mishap. It was a glaring signal to every nation still writing yesterday's war plans in tomorrow's blood. The new battlefield rewards those who adapt first, who see further, who multiply force with networks and intelligence. The age of massed invincible machines is ending. In its place, swarms of affordable, disposable drones, guided by data, reshaping the contest in real time. So, was it the tank that failed? Or the thinking that built it? The truth is both. The refusal to change costs more than any price tag attached to a tank. Nations pouring fortunes into relics, hoping storied reputations will shield them, are only building monuments to their own decline. Here is the line in the sand. Who will shape the next era of conflict? The keepers of fading legends, or the architects of a new doctrine? There is no neutral ground left. At this crossroads, one lesson rings out. The future belongs not to the strongest, nor the oldest, but to those who move first. The decisive question is no longer whose armor is thickest, but whose vision is sharpest, whose strategy is boldest, and who dares to abandon comfort for advantage. The story of the Abrams is not just a cautionary tale, but a call to action. In every era, the tools of war change, but the challenge remains the same: to see beyond the myth, to adapt before disaster, and to build the future before the past crumbles beneath our feet. The age of the tank is not over, but its supremacy is. The battlefield belongs to the agile, the connected, the innovative. In this new age, the question is not who has the biggest gun, but who can change the fastest. So, as the smoke clears and the myths fall, the answer is clear. Survival in war, and in history, belongs to those who see the world as it is, not as it was. The only true invincibility is the courage to adapt.